Hello, and welcome to Digital World Partners, another edition of learning something new about digital marketing that you might not have otherwise known about. And here we have today a special guest. We have Corey Silverstein, all the way from the USA, originally from Canada. Corey, how you doing?
Good morning, Nigel. Thanks for having me today.
All right. Pleasure to have you out here on a beautiful day.
It is absolutely gorgeous. I'm hoping that by the end of the day here, I'm going to be as tanned as you.
I think you might get there pretty soon. So tell me something. In the world of digital marketing, from a legal perspective, what are some of the things that you see happen quite a bit, and that people who are getting into a digital marketing endeavor, what would you like to tell them, to protect themselves from a legal perspective?
That's a fantastic question. With the incredible and exponential growth of digital marketing and networking right now, it's incredible how many new people are really venturing off into this and, make some really key mistakes. And I'll give you the perfect example. Oftentimes people getting into this, they don't really think of it as, a business that necessarily needs contracts and agreements and lay down the framework for what sort of deals they're doing with their soon-to-be customers and so forth. And, one of the greatest pieces, one of the greatest examples I can give you is that, I've been coming to trade shows like this for a long time, about, over 10 years now. And this show in Phoenix happens to be one of my absolute favorites. And I can remember...
Mine as well.
It's just awesome. And I can remember about being here it must have been 9 years ago, 10 years ago now. And I was involved in a meeting between two guys, and it was a purchase of a website. And somebody whipped out a napkin and started jotting down terms. And as it turned out, this was like a $2 million deal. These guys were like the happiest guys on the planet. They were singing Kumbaya and running off into the sunset. The seller with his giant check, the buyer with his new wonderful business. And then they left. And very quickly the honeymoon period ended, because obviously napkin agreements aren't exactly...
They don't cover much, do they?
No, they don't. There's only so much you can actually write on a napkin. And people so often forget that, yes, this is kind of the World Wide Web era. It's the digital era. But ultimately, understanding what your deal is with your partners and your affiliates and whoever you're going to be doing with is absolutely essential. You cannot go and take this approach where you're just going to jump into something and hope for the best. And if something ever comes up, don't worry about it, because we had a great time out at some club somewhere, God knows when, God knows who, and It's just all good times. Well, in my experience, it's always great times until people start making money, and it's time to split up that money. Once you see that honeymoon period kind of move into the who's getting the money period, it's incredibly how quickly the best of friends and frankly even family members can turn out to be just nasty disputes.
And it boggles my mind why people don't want to spend a little bit of money up front, whether it's $2,500 or $5,000 for a contract, a proper agreement that sets the terms of everything, of what happens when things go well and what happens if things are not going to go well. I mean, I'd much rather have a peace of mind, in advance, instead of thinking about, we get into that, then we don't have anything in writing, what's going to happen?
You couldn't be any more dead on. And, one of the examples that I can give you is that oftentimes people ask me general questions. They ask me about, prenuptial agreements. They come up all the time. And I always say to people, when they ask me, how can you do that? That's not a very romantic way to enter into a marriage. But what really is a prenuptial?
Divorce isn't romantic either.
No, not really. Well, sometimes it can be pretty romantic. But the fact is that what a prenuptial agreement does is that a prenuptial agreement explains what's going to happen in the event of the marriage dissolution. Who's going to get what's going to happen. It's not any different than guys in this particular business, when they're doing business with a vendor or a partner or what have you, have an agreement in place, because you can spell out exactly how the relationship is going to go while it's going on, and then you can spell out exactly what's going to happen in the relationship when it goes bad. In the U.S. in particular, the cost of litigation is...
It's huge.
It's huge. It's obscene. Nobody enjoys it. Nobody likes it, because ultimately you're spending a whole bunch of money on lawyers. You're taking up a ton of your personal time. You're going to court. You're going to discovery hearings and motions and depositions. And
it's a big drain.
It's massive. And frankly, if a relationship gets to the point that it turns into litigation, then obviously things have gone horribly wrong. And some lawyers would disagree with me. A lot of lawyers love litigation because frankly they make a lot of money. But ultimately, my clients, I always tend to try to guide them in the direction of setting everything up from the beginning.
Right.
Why walk down the path of where you're going to be in trouble eventually when you can set everything right from the start and know exactly, okay, this isn't going to work out, here's what's going to happen. And you don't have to litigate. If you have a properly formatted agreement, you can choose what law is going to apply to it. You can choose what form of dispute resolution you'll have if it gets there.
Location as well.
Location, and these are all things that people don't think about, especially in your field and in your industry. You've got relationships for companies like yourself. You're up there in Montreal, Quebec, Canada,
right.
King of the poutine, and we got others who are down in South Florida. Myself in Detroit. We have people doing business out of Israel and Russia and the Ukraine, and it's incredible because the era of geographical restraint on business in the digital world is gone. It's evaporated. It doesn't exist. There is no geographical relationship. You could click on a button on your computer screen now, a Skype button or anything, and you could be live chatting with someone on the other end of the world in a time zone 18 hours apart.
Exactly.
And that's incredible. I mean, that's just, to think of that in terms of possibilities means that the sky's the limit. I mean, anyone can really, anything they can dream up in their mind in terms of doing together, in terms of a business venture is totally doable.
In a digital age, absolutely.
Yep.
And speaking of geography, you bring up a good point. What would you tell people? Hey, you know what? They're established, they're making their business, and the U.S. territory is doing great for them. Hey, now I want to expand into Europe. What kind of legal information would they need to know to do business in Europe properly?
Another thing that people often forget is they seem to think that wherever they're located, that's the end-all, be-all of the law. If two guys are doing business and one guy's located in Tallahassee, Florida, and the other guy's up in New York, they seem to think that, well, we don't have to worry about laws outside of those two cities. Right. That's not the case at all. You have to consider all of the various local laws, state laws, federal laws, and now when you start having a business that has done wonderfully in North America and want to expand over to Europe, they have to consider all the European laws.
We have a lot of privacy laws in Europe right now that we don't have in North America.
The privacy push and the war on censorship in Europe is incredible. It's hot right now. It's debated very publicly. Politicians are using it as topics in their various campaigns. In the last couple of months, we saw the end of ATVOD out there, which was the biggest conversation that we were having over the past year. Now they're finished, and now a different organization stepped in and started dealing with these sorts of issues. And you have to plan for it. You can't just say, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to start doing business in Amsterdam or the Netherlands, and I'm not going to consider what their laws are, and especially when it comes to data privacy right now, because in the digital world, this is the hot button issue right now. You're going to see it more in front pages. If you look at the last year, you're talking about major companies, Home Depot, Target, banks, all of these guys having massive data breaches and now have to comply with all these various laws. Because this is something interesting, Nigel, that most people really don't consider. Most United States laws are written so that if you even have one consumer in a certain locale, then you have to adhere to that certain locale's laws when it comes to data breaches and data disclosures.
And in North America, how many different locales do we have?
Well, in the United States, of course, you have 50 different individual states, of course, and you have federal law. Then under federal law, you have the regulatory agencies such as the FCC, such as the FTC. The FTC says that their jurisdiction, where they can go after you, is as long as a business has one consumer in the United States. That's all it takes.
Oh.
They have jurisdiction. So you can be a business set up and incorporated in Thailand or Hong Kong or wherever you want to be, but you're doing business with even one U.S.-based consumer, you are subject to the FTC's jurisdiction.
Wow, I did not know that.
Most people don't, and they overlook it. And it's little things that we see people getting into massive trouble for because, I get it. I've heard all the lawyer jokes, and I've been compared to the devil and whatever other the Grim Reaper or whatever horrible terminology people want to give lawyers. But the bottom line, and this goes back to the point that you were making originally, the cost of knowing ahead of time what it's going to cost you to be legally compliant, what you're going to have to do to be legally compliant, is minuscule compared to what the cost of litigation are. And to go back to your question, you've got to be doing your homework. You've got to know what sort of digital business are you entering into? What laws in the EU are going to apply? If it is the EU, it might be somewhere else. It might be South America. It could be anywhere. And so many countries have different laws. And going back to what I was saying a minute ago, data privacy is huge. I mean, we've seen it in the digital world. We see it every day. Websites getting hacked. Large companies are on the run and scrambling to keep up with, frankly, hackers with bad intentions. And now we're seeing class action litigation. We're seeing government regulation, and we're seeing governments say, hey, we're seeing this now, and we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
Websites have an obligation to do certain things, we'll call them A, B, C, D, and E's in whatever jurisdiction you're in, to make sure that you're protecting the sensitive information and telling your consumers what you're doing with that. That's the big privacy policy thing.
That's coming out right now.
Well, people want...
It's the hottest topic in the last few years.
Well, so,
data breaches, everything from Sony to popular dating sites.
Yep.
It's crazy.
I like how you went with popular dating sites and didn't actually specifically name anyone.
Oh, no, I'm not naming any.
I think you must have a brilliant lawyer who's probably prepping you fantastically. But, the privacy policy issue is huge because people in the digital world, they start up even a website to tell the world, all right, here's what my service is going to be. I'm going to provide social networking, social marketing, what have you, whatever the product is. And then they're like, well, I'll just go to, Dell.com and take their privacy policy because then I got my privacy policy. It is insanity. You don't know what's in it. You don't know if it applies to you. You don't know if you're complying with the law. And frankly, there are laws on the books that make it criminal to to make statements about things that you do to protect people's privacy if you don't do them. So it's just crazy. So
it's nuts.
The era of running around when you start up a new business, especially in the digital world, of just taking someone's terms and privacy policy.
We see that a lot.
I see it all the time.
Almost on a daily basis.
The running joke right now that I have is I have like a little piece of paper on my wall that I just like mark off a line every time I see someone steal a set of terms of use or privacy policy that me or my office has created. And I know this because oftentimes in my documents it says, this document has been created by Corey Silverstein.
Oh my gosh.
And so they don't even change the name on it. They don't change the address. And so it's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Just the lack of thought that people put into this and think that this isn't going to pop up. And websites are becoming more aggressive. We've had enough of it. Clients that pay me good money to create their terms and spend the time to make sure they're complying with the law.
To have somebody else copy and paste it.
Exactly. They're tired of it. And frankly, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to be upset about.
Do people employ you to go after people who copy their work?
We do. I'm actually doing 2 cases right now. I started with them about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Both of them involve publications where some websites took time to write some incredible articles and spent some time with legal, making sure that the articles complied with applicable law and had certain legal disclaimers,
right.
And a overseas site ripped off everything. The article, the art, the legal disclaimer, my name, everything. And, we deal with this all the time. And, frankly, if we can't get a response from the websites themselves who are doing this, we oftentimes will resort to contacting the web hosts and the bandwidth providers and the ISPs and so forth to try to get
like a DMCA approach.
When applicable, yeah, we do take the DMCA approach because obviously clients have an inherent interest in protecting their intellectual property, and the DMCA is a great tool to utilize to protect yourself on both ends.
That's good stuff. Well, there you have it. There's quite a bit of really good information you need to know on a legal aspect and in terms of digital marketing. If you need to get in touch with Corey Silverstein, you can leave your information inside of the Contact Us button that we're going to post here right after this video, and we'll get you in touch with Corey. Corey, thank you very much. This is very informative as usual. I always learn something every time I see you.
Nigel, thank you so much for having me, and this is fantastic. I've been loving watching these clips, so keep them coming.
All right, good stuff.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Have a great day.